Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our February 2nd workshop on this blustery, cold day. So I'd like to invite Mr. Stephen Vancore up to the front. You're going to have 3.01 and 3.02. Mr. Vancore is a principal in Vancore Jones Communications. He has done some work for us already, and he's going to give us that report.
Thank you. Appreciate you letting me be here. Thank you very much. Can you put up the PowerPoint?
Mr. Vancore, there's a controller right there. You're welcome to sit, or you're welcome to stand at the podium wherever you're more comfortable.
This will be
Okay, great.
So I'm the president of Clearview Research, and we have been doing polling in the state for about 20 years. I have personally been polling for about 40 years. We have a great reputation. We do it all over the state and pretty much every county at one point or another. And this area has been a special area for us. And for example, this year alone, we've already done about 17 polls in county districts trying to understand voters' attitudes towards either half-penny taxes for the schools, full penny or half-penny for counties, as well as millage increases. So what we did is we used what's known in the business as the gold standard. It's just live outbound callers, Florida-based callers calling to a list of registered voters. We modeled the sample to do our best job to try to predict what the electorate will look like in the coming November election. And so we modeled our sample as closely as possible to look like what we anticipate the population would be. We got 400 likely voters in Lake County. We talked to them. We looked at 5 important variables to make sure our sample looked like the population. For example, we used gender. So we know at approximately 52% of the electorate will be female in the upcoming November election. Our poll is 52% female. We also balanced it by party registration, by geography, by age, and as well as race, ethnicity, to make sure as many variables as we can control for to make it look as much like the population. With that, it has a very narrow margin of error, and made even narrower by the fact that the questions are skewed because of the response set, which is all good. So we tested 2 different things. We wanted to test what would the current renewal, if you just renewed the current system 4 years, if you do that, and your lawyer, I think, will tell you you can't change a word. It has to be the same agreement, the same contract, the same amount moving forward. And in testing that, we found overwhelming support, about a 3-to-1 level of support among voters. 64% said yes, they would vote for it if the election were held today. Now, of course, we know the election's not going to be held today, but these things tend to be relatively stable. It's not like we hear about polls and presidential elections, and you're constantly being fed news about that. These things don't do that. We could poll this in another 5 months, and I'm pretty confident it would be plus or minus 2 or 3 points on the 64%, unless something cataclysmic happens. But we tested the existing language, and it came out 64-24. Good, but not great. And I'll tell you what I'm talking about there is if you're running for office, let's say, Mr. Chairman, it's me versus you, and you've got 64% and I got 24%, we would anticipate that would be a landslide. Referenda don't work that way. The way referenda work, it's really 64 versus the 50. And these things tend to have a downward trajectory, so that if 1 or 2 group members come out and says, I don't like it, that negative tends to have more power than any positive messaging. So what we try to do is develop the very best language to elevate that as much as possible, assuming if you're putting it on the ballot, that means you also want it to pass. So we tested something else as well. We tested, and I was a little surprised about this because, just so you know, historically in the state of Florida, no millage renewal has ever failed. Now, I don't want to put that out of context in this regard. Most of these pass anyway. All right, so these are generally not difficult. I mean, it makes sense. People like their teachers. They like their local schools. They want to see their money kept local because every dollar raised from this stays right here in Lake County. It doesn't go to the state. It doesn't go to the feds. But normally, renewal is a very powerful word. But we tested some different language based on our experience. So we also tested a 1 mil, which would increase your current 0.75 to 1, up to 1. And we used what we thought was our best language based on our numerous polls we've done. And what we like to do is, like, say, make it really clear to the voters what they're voting on in order to recruit and retain high-quality teachers and to meet the requirements of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act for the enhancement of school safety, security, and mental health. Shall the school district levy up to 1 mil ad valorem tax for 4 years, creating a sustainable funding source that is critical for improving and maintaining safety for our children and to increase teacher pay. Now, this polled a little higher. I was frankly a little surprised because we do this a lot, and renewal is a very, very powerful word or extension of, but more powerful than that is raising teacher pay. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So the way we like to approach this is we take what we consider the best ballot language in total. I've got 15-word title and a 75-word summary to operate off of. And what I do then is I break down the ingredients of that item. For example, public safety, school security, raising teacher pay, et cetera, et cetera. And when we do that, we also notice the direction of the schools, not a big deal. And this is more reflective, frankly, of the national environment, a lot of negativity out there. So they want to see a change in the direction of the schools. There were more people who said things were headed in the wrong direction than right direction. We didn't delve into that more. And I know it's got to be mind-boggling to you. You got the superintendent of the year. You have all these A schools. You're doing really well, but the public wants better, which is nice that they want a higher standard. So what we did is we broke out some of the elements of the language, and we found, and I've created this system we called elevator anchor analysis. What I do is we test the ballot itself, and then we test the individual ingredients of the ballot. And what we look at is those items that poll above the ballot. In other words, the voters are more pleased with that. I call that an elevator. If it polls below, we call that an anchor. Now, what we usually do is recommend that the elevators all stay in the ballot language, in the ballot summary, where the anchors are taken out. You still may do those things, they're just not in the summary. Now, the one thing which we did not test on here, but we know from hundreds and hundreds of polls, dozens and dozens of polls, is that the charter language that's required by state is often a net negative. It pulls it down a little bit. So we did not test it here, but on advice of counsel, we're going to include that language in our recommendation if you change. If you stay with the old one, you don't need to change anything, but if you go with the full mill, it would be our recommendation at this point to add in language saying a proportionate share goes to charter schools as required by Florida law. But you'll see here, when we say help recruit and retain highly qualified teachers, more likely to vote for it, you hit almost 80%. Same thing with raised teacher pay. Funding for schools, security and safety, also very popular. Mental health services, also very, very popular. When you get to the generic and preserve important school programs, not so much. Still above the ballot, so technically these are all elevators. But those first four are very, very strong. So with that, and working at council and with your council, we came up with, if you're going to go to the full mill, now that's your choice, right? I think that's what you're contemplating today. Do you stick with the current one, which is a renewal, or do you go to the full mill? And we added some other enhancers as well. For example, we know that telling people that every dollar stays right here, that the money stays local, is one of the most powerful elevators we have. We also know that Citizens Advisory Committee, somebody to look over. You know, it is a misinterpretation of the way people vote to say, oh, Republicans are against taxes. They're not. But they are, as fiscal conservatives, you want to say, I want to make sure my money is properly spent. I want to make sure there's an oversight committee to make sure the money's not spent for something else. And they especially love when the money stays local. And that's what universally brings both together. So we feel confident that if this language would be there, Adding the fact that we added staying local and reviewed by an independent citizen review committee would elevate it even further, probably into the high 60s. So with that, I'm open and available for any questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Thank you. That was a fantastic presentation.
Because it was short, right?
You hit the high-level points, so I appreciate it, yeah. My concern, and I certainly trust your professional judgment, but when I look at the sample size of 400 likely voters relative to the 270,000 voters in Lake, I mean, that's 0.15% of the total voting population, and making decisions based on this good data, but still based on that small of a sample size, in my mind, relative to property tax issues and other referendums on the ballot. Being mindful, I certainly support teacher pay, and I certainly support this $1 mil increase, but I also want to be cognizant of not jeopardizing our 0.75, because if we were to increase this and then lose that 0.75, that $30 million hole or so is just as painful, if not more painful, and wanting to make sure that we craft this language in a way, if we do choose to go to the full mill, to limit that downside as much as possible. I am encouraged by the data that you're showing here, but again, can you just speak to the 400 being appropriate in your mind, and,
Absolutely,
and how
absolutely.
that works? I think that's
my
biggest concern.
The whole master seminar on why
please.
400 is a really good sample. Many times we'll go in with 300.
Okay.
So the way bell curve statistics work, if you draw a random sample, just a straight random sample, you don't know that it's representative. If you so we draw a random sample that's also representative, and what we learned many years of doing this, it comes out to be pretty accurate in terms of predicting the entire model. The best analogy I could think of is when you draw blood for your doctor, you draw a millionth of a percent when they take a little drop and they put it on a thing. But that's a random sample of your blood, and it's highly accurate to say what your blood sugar is or what your cholesterol is or whatever those things. Parametric statistics work the same way. When you get above 300, you start to have what's called margin of error, which is based on the bell curve, how many standard deviations from the mean that is. When you get to 400, it's much narrower. The better news is that's based on a yes/no question that's 50-50 in reality, also known as the worst case example. When you skew it, which this is, and skew is normally a bad word, but that doesn't mean it's biased. It means the data set is lumped towards the mean is slid over to the 64%. So I'm very confident. And like last cycle, we did about 18 polls on these issues, and all of them came within 2 to 3 points of the final ballot. Now, that does not mean there's sometimes a game change. For some odd reason in Monroe County, it jumped 20 points. In a couple of other counties, it dropped about 6 points. But by and large, they come out pretty accurate that way. So in my professional opinion, my master's is in market research. 400 sample is fantastic.
Okay.
You see statewide polls all the time at 500 samples, and they're pretty accurate, too.
Well, I think the rest of my questions will go towards 3.02 within, okay, if we go forward with this, how do we market it effectively to ensure that that data or the results come out close to that point and get us what we need to be?
That's a really good question, because the law has been changing on that.
Sure, and with the other factors in play, with the governor's pushes and the legislature's pushes, just making sure we're being mindful of that. My only other question.
Answer those, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind, sure.
Oh, yeah, no. So the two things. Let me answer the second question first about what's potentially going to be on the ballot. What we have found is, through extensive research in this, is that one poll item rarely affects another poll item, unless, for those of you who have as many gray hairs as I do, remember in 2018 when there was a whole bunch of them on the ballot, and they were really long. There was, I think, 14 of them. The only one that failed, by the way, was to lower property taxes, ironically. The rest of them all passed by about a similar margin, so you had pattern voting here. You normally don't get that in these kind of things. We did extensive research in Manatee County, Marion County, and Brevard County on this very issue, because for those we had the half penny up and a new millage at the same time. So we were fortunate enough to have vendors who were willing to pay for polls. We did 2 or 3 or 4 different ways, and we did focus groups. And what you find is, if a voter likes this, they're going to vote yes. And you have a powerful one here with teacher pay. We see those kind of numbers. If they see the property tax thing, when we don't know, A, if there's even going to be one on the ballot, given the breakdown in the legislative process, or what that will look like. So I can't predict that. But I am fairly confident these things travel alone and travel separately. Now, as to your other question about how do you market this, If you're polling that high, I would first recommend you do very little, because when, it's like, to use a sporting analogy, if your team's ahead, what you're mostly watching is the clock, right? Like, come on, go clock. Same way in campaigns, referenda campaigns. But there's two tracks on these things. Track one is what can the government do? And I'll let Scott answer those questions. But by and large, you can't spend and send, meaning you can spend some money. For example, you can update your website. What will the money go to? You can spend money to develop material so that if you go to a Kiwanis Club, an EDC meeting, a chamber meeting, you can hand stuff out. You can develop a PowerPoint presentation. You can hire a consulting firm to help guide all that. But what you cannot do is send out information unsolicited to voters. So your hands are a little tied on that. What a lot of school districts will also do, people in the community get together, either with the business community, the development community. I mean, the best example ever was Manatee County. The developers there said, we have C-rated schools. We want A-rated schools, because guess what happens if I'm DH Norton or one of those companies and I'm building 5,000 homes. If they're an A school district, that's $10,000 more per home, right? And so they saw the value of better teacher pay, and they heavily funded it. So you have a separate political committee, if you like, to set up from people within the community to go ahead and push for something like that. Their limitations are minimal. They have to adhere to Florida election law, and that's it.
Okay, perfect. And I've got one last question, well,
Sure.
comment and a question. Board, I did speak with Jennifer Barker from the county office this morning, and at this point, they are not considering any referendums of their own. There was some talk about a gas tax and some other items for them, but as of now, they do not plan on having anything else on the ballot for the county themselves, which I think is helpful as we consider this conversation. And last question for you, sir, on the recommended language, I think it's good. I know there's the word count. Does this hit it pretty close, or does this hit it on the number? The only reason I ask is I think some mention of
73.
I think some mention of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas is important. I think voters know what that means and what that is. And while we've got a lot of really good language in here, if there would be a way to work that in, like operational purposes, I don't know if that really matters. Once you look at the rest of it, I like the review board. I like the charter school proportion share. I think those are helpful to the voters. But I think I would rather not leave it up to chance it anyway. I mean, the Falcons were up 28-3, thought they had it in the bag, and that didn't happen. So even though this voting is good, I think Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to some levels just helps our cause even more. Just want to throw that out there for consideration, or your professional opinion on that as well.
We have two more. I think we have, Scott, we have a two-word.
2 words.
2 words.
You take out operational purposes, you got 2 more.
Yeah, what's
4
interesting
words.
is Escambia blew through that limit because their lawyer, I often joke that 67 counties, 67 different lawyers, 67 different opinions. Their lawyer didn't think they had to adhere to the 75 words. It was never challenged. But having worked with Scott, he's relatively conservative on these things, as would I be. Yeah. And so if we can find a way to get MSD in there, we can take some other things out, but we have. I feel strongly we need to keep it to 75. You don't want to be the test case.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be the test case either. I agree. Yeah, so I think 4 operational purposes could get us 3 more words, and look at some of the rest. But just I've talked a lot, so I'll be quiet.
Yeah, if operational expenses is blah, we don't know what that means, but we know what MSD is.
Mrs. Cunningham.
Thank you for your presentation. Very enlightening. I just have one question. Based on our population in Lake County, I'm sure you're aware we have a lot of people who have no vested interest in the school system. I hear it all the time. Did you take that into consideration, our aged population, and how did they figure into those 400 that you polled? Were there a greater percentage, or how did we take?
It's a really good question. Of course, yes, we did. We balanced the poll by age, and if you look at the crosstabs, and I'll be happy to send them to you. Okay. It's a 168-page document. I'm sure you'll comb through it. What I love is that senior citizens tend to be as, if not more, supportive of these initiatives. And
not a senior citizen.
And as a newly anointed senior citizen myself, I think part of the reason is that you have, when you're little, you have a small event horizon. When you get older, you see things clear and long term. I think they recognize the value of having a high-quality public school system and generally support these things. Even people on fixed income. So yes, ma'am, we did balance it by age. Our poll will looks to. I can't predict what what the electorate will actually look like. I based it on current voter registration trends and what off-year elections tend to look like. And so we balanced it as much as possible by that. But yeah, older folks are not less likely to support.
Good to know. Thank you.
Well, I find a lot of comfort in your numbers and in this potential solution for us. I mean, if we're waiting on Tallahassee to solve the lopsided budget where we stand, we'll never get that fixed.
I hear that a lot.
Right. And I mean, I see the faces of people out there who are directly impacted because they're the ones taking home the paycheck every week that is, not representative of what their counterparts are getting in other districts. We also hear that disparity just in neighboring districts versus ours. So I think this is a great solution. I'm really excited that we're able to work beyond the means of the 0.75 to create a vehicle for this. My wondering is in the language. I'm going to go back to the language piece. It's when the one that you polled, that updated language there, you had 66% there, and one of your highest elevators, I think second from the top there, was raise teacher pay. Those are the last words in that ballot. That's the last thing I linger on and I hear. But then in the proposed language, that teacher pay seems to get buried in the middle, and I'm wondering if how would that impact?
Yeah, our cup flow with over on that. It's good, really good questions. Our cup flow with over on that. Yes, teacher pay is the most powerful. I like you, believe in primacy recency from our extensive research on voter behavior. What you see is voters will walk in and they'll look at the ballot title, start here, scan, and go to the end, and then drop over. The middle tends to be Charlie Brown's mom, right?
100%.
But like I said, our cup flow with over, we have Citizens Oversight Committee is very popular. Keeping the money local is very popular. Teacher pay are very popular. And so that's why we say it in the final language, as I recall, twice.
Yeah, in that final language, it's...
Yeah, in order to recruit and retain teachers, I mean, you have a little room. You could put something about teacher pay in the ballot language, but we can certainly move that around. If we get to our 75, Scott and I can take that and scramble it around till we end with teacher pay, if that would be your recommendation.
Well, I guess I'm wondering what's the strongest piece. Did you?
We did not on this
the-
one. We did not. We were on a very tight budget, so we kept the questions short. But
Okay.
I will tell you, from having done this, the local and the Independent Citizen Review Committee are always, fan favorites.
Sure.
But teacher pay is your most powerful. So if we ended with, in order to raise teacher pay, I would have no opposition to that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I just wonder about, Tyler, I agree with you, the operational purposes there. I don't want it to look like we're just hiding behind some bureaucracy that people don't really understand or mean.
Yeah, what we found, to Tyler's point, is enhanced school safety is just as strong as saying MSD in particular, and that always eats. My general thing is that eats so many words,
Sure.
and you're limited to just 75 outside of Escambia. Enhancing school safety prominently put up there. So.
Yeah, well, I like the mention of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas
Sure.
Act. I think a proper noun in there, gives maybe some legitimacy of this is, like we're trying to comply with what we're directed to do, and this is the funding source to do that.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
And
it's interesting
not
because,
optional.
like I said, I've
Right.
been polling this
Correct.
a long time. School safety was never ranked high. It was, it was often an elevator, but a gentle, slow one. Since 2008, February 14, 2018, it's been tops. But what's interesting, it's starting to fade just a wee bit. Still strong, but teacher pay continues to rocket high. And when you have the governor appropriately saying we need to raise teacher pay as
Right.
well, that gives us kind of one of those rare unified apple mothers and apple pie message kind of thing we have. Everybody seems to agree improving teacher pay is important.
Sure. I love the idea. I would just like to play with the wording a little bit.
Sure.
And get us to some...
In my mind, we've got 6 words to work with between for operational purposes, and I don't think we need support in front of staff pay without wordsmithing this thing entirely. And if you've got the other 2, if we're at 73, then 6 words in some portion for either teacher pay or Marjorie Stoneman Douglas or something of the sort. Just food for thought.
Okay. Scott, we can work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you done?
Are you done?
Yes, Mrs. Luke.
Dr.
Luke.
It's
Doctor.
with that. You said the first and the last. Was it the title though, Lake County School District ad valorem tax, or is it you have the teacher it doesn't say teacher pay, but the insinuation of recruiting and retaining teachers and enhancing school safety, the first sentence, and then the last sentence is the local.
Yeah, I think there's essentially two primaries, right? The first is the title, and then they start to read what it does.
And then
Generally
so-
slide through it if they like it.
Right.
Oh, good. That's why I always believe in putting the most important thing first, because they'll make a decision right then. Oh, yeah. In order to recruit and retain teachers, I like that.
Right.
Whatever else is enhancing and supporting that, not contradicting it. Yeah, so so the primacy recency, and it's a little fuzzy, right? Because I do these focus groups, and they'll raise their hand and tell me what they're liking or not liking. But generally, it's this plus this, and then close out there.
Okay, yeah. The only other thing I was wondering, and this kind of blends into the next agenda item, is do we have any understanding yet if our like home builders associations and our real estate agencies, like do we know if those people are coming in support of yet?
Well, we have not gone out and really tested the water because I wanted to see what language we ended up with.
Right.
So just with some conversations, I know our sheriff and other municipal police departments are absolutely on board. They understand how significant this is for improving school safety. And so he, at Teacher of the Year, he said, when do we get started? So he's ready to roll, and I know with his support,
Good.
I think we'll, certainly once we have the language, one of the things we'll be asking for is some help from Mr. Vancour and his group to go out and do the marketing, meeting with our homeowners association and every group. So it's going to be a busy couple of months for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing at the illusion of time. I've watched so many basketball games where they do run the clock out, and then in the last 20 seconds, it comes down to this buzzer beater
Yeah, why
situation.
watch the first
and
three
why do we
quarters?
do that? Right, and I don't even understand that concept, but thinking about an election year and thinking about the people that are going to be coming to the ballot and so forth, I think that's going to be an important driver that the community supports it, and I certainly think they will. To your point, you said in your presentation, it's kind of interesting that we have an A district, the superintendent of the year, and we still have some people that think it's moving in the wrong direction. So I think this is a prime opportunity for us to not only support our workforce, but to also elevate the perception of what is really happening in Lake County schools. I think that'll be like a prominent driver for our communication purposes. It's just
Yeah,
let
and
people know.
we've actually had the support of local realtors, like formally, like sending out mailers in support of this, because they too recognize if I live off commissions of selling a home,
Yes.
and I'm selling a home in an A district, I'm going to get a higher commission as a result of that. Because let's face it, schools and homes in poor performing districts don't sell as well or for as much as in high performing districts. But sometimes they're split because they're like, oh, we don't need more property taxes.
Right.
But on the other hand, we want really, really good schools.
Yeah. Well, and it is empowering, to Mr. Dodd's point about having to sit and kind of, I always say that I want to be driving the crazy bus rather than sitting on it. And I feel like if we just sit on it and continue to sit on it, we don't see much traction in that regard. So it'd be nice to be able to drive our own conversations around what we expect our teachers and our staff to be paid. So, yeah.
Very good. Okay, now you can get to Downer Debbie.
Oh, here we go.
So I want to remind everyone, and both Mark and Dr. Luke and I, we first went out for the .75 because we wanted to control our destiny. We knew we had to provide safety and security, and equally important was mental health. And it polled really high, and we won by 58%. So there is this slide that you speak about. We need to speak about what that revenue, what it means to us. And currently, we bring in $37 million. That's what's being put at risk, because you said earlier, the renewal almost always pass. 28.7 million actually comes to this district because of the proportionate share that we have to do, that we do. It concerns me, and this is my last year, and you want to leave things better than you found them. And if we lost, because this is not a renewal, this would be a new referendum. And if we put that at risk and we lose those funds, then that safety, security, and mental health component, and the mental health I will share with you, we have seen amazing results from having those liaisons. And so I'm concerned because of the political climate. I'm concerned, as you said, the governor's speaking about giving teachers raises. If he already is going to come out with funding, how does that affect the referendum if we're saying that's what we want to do? And so those are my real concerns. And now I will share with you out of the other side of my mouth. I admire this board because, like we did originally, is we decided to take it in our own destiny. And I think that's positive. But genuinely am fearful that with the temperament of the community today, people with the conversation of ending property taxes altogether, how is that going to be perceived when they come in to vote? That I was speaking to Mr. Ward, and people would challenge the 0.75 from time to time, but he shared with me, and you can agree or not, that they're actually angry now when they call about it, getting their tax bills. So how does that manifest itself when they come to the polls for now a new referendum versus just renewing? So board members, that's my concern. And
Can I ask a question? What is so if this were to fail, if we went forward with the new language and we weren't to be successful, when would be the next opportunity that we'd have to come forward with bringing back the mental health and school safety? Is it 2 years?
I don't know.
I don't-
Does anybody know?
Yeah, 2020.
If it fails, you can go back up in 2 years, but you can no longer call it an extension. That was a recently passed law.
An extension?
You can no, so for the
It wouldn't be
full
a renewal
pennies,
again.
for the half pennies and the millage, if it fails the first round, next round, you can no longer call it an extension, but you can go back up with a new one. So we had discussed this at length, and if I could, all I have to do is compare. All I have at my disposal, I can't predict the future, is comparing the renewal 64 to 24, which is a plus 40, to this one, which is a plus 45. I also believe with some of the enhancements we talked about, I could probably get that up to 67, maybe 68, and drop that down. You're now talking, I mean, really solid numbers. So I share your thoughts, which is the sure thing in one level seems like the renewal will pass. It's the least risky. But I'm looking at two sets of numbers, and the voters are telling me on the same poll. And one of the things we do to make sure you understand this, we rotate these questions. We don't ask them in the same order because there's a thing in polling called ordering effect. If I ask you 19 questions in a row, you eventually get bored with them, right? To minimize, you can never get rid of ordering effect because you're getting A and B, you're getting B and A, so it's to you. But to mitigate it, so statistically, this is. If you were to ask me which is the surer route, I'd say this one is because it polls higher. But I hear what you're saying. It's probably an easier message to go out into the community and say, no change, everything's good. So, but this polls a little higher.
But I think that you could go, in the case of the 0.75 renewal, we have a story to tell with our mental health. We have the kids that we built. We have safety and security on every campus. Those are things they can see, and we're renewing that. And I think that's a powerful marketing tool.
Absolutely.
Right?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
If you went to a mill, this 3/4 stays intact, it's just an add-on.
No, I understand that. But
I mean, I know I was asking.
But I,
Yes.
oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. He was asking if the .75
How would
were
the
made
split be?
dedicated for school safety and mental health.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
all right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
But it also, it isn't going to go for teacher raises because you can't give a raise on a millage. It's going to go for bonuses, if you will. It's going to go for stipends. And so I think that those that think they're going to get a raise if they support this, that is not the case.
Right.
And I think that's going to become pretty clear. Or at least it shouldn't because
It's non-reoccurring.
It's not recurring.
Right.
So then what happens if it fails in 4 years and suddenly you're out
Now what do you do?
$40 million?
Right.
That's right. I mean, it
So is there-
genuinely, I think that also for me, by the way, that as we discuss this, that consensus needs to be 100% in my mind, like 5-0. And I'm going to do what those of you that have to live with it after the fact. I'm just saying that up front, but I genuinely am concerned for what happens. And if 2 years, we lose $56 million, what does that look like for the district and for those programs that are in place?
So the 58% renewal that we got, was that in 18 or 22?
The last one,
So 22. What was it in 18? Do you know?
I do not know.
56?
Oh, 56.
No way. It went up?
Yeah.
I thought it went up.
I can't remember, but it was almost exactly the same.
Yeah, it was close.
I thought it went down. Okay.
We pulled it
So-
out.
so
Even if it could have.
I'll verify, but it's right in there. There was not a big difference.
So the one thing to consider also, 18 versus 22. In 18, we set up the pack, and we did a lot of messaging on this. In 22, we played that game of, well, we don't want anybody to, come out against it, or let's people are satisfied with what we're doing with this, so let's just kind of lay low, and we did not set up a PAC for it.
Right.
I guess in this other component here, if we're talking about teacher pay and so on and so forth, I think there are other stakeholder groups who are going to be talking about this, which I guess could be a good thing, or it could backfire based on which groups oppose that, you know? So I don't know. I'm just saying last go around we did nothing.
Well, and so the only other resource that I have, and you're brilliant, by the way, so this is.
Oh, thank you.
But I also have my guy who did manage my 3 campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent him this polling information, and he's not, I guess he's a competitor to what you do. But anyway, he thinks a lot of you, by the way.
He does? Oh,
Yes.
also nice to hear. Keep going.
Yeah. But his concern was because of the slide. These are people you're calling saying, would you vote for it? That does not mean when they're in the booth that they vote for it. You know what I mean? He said there's always a slide. People will say great things like, yeah, I want to give teachers pay. So that's a positive. But when they get there, they're going to go, I'm not going to add another $123 to my tax bill or whatever.
So it's an interesting point, because what we did an extensive analysis of the polling we did from 20 to 22 and then 22 to 24, and that was true-ish in the 20 to 22, where we polled about 6-point drop on average. For some reason last cycle, and maybe it was my brilliance, just joking, of course, that we changed how we approach some of this ballot language, and the on average changed. Now, I'm taking Monroe County out. I have no idea what happened there, because it went up like 20 points. But overall, there's about a 3 to 4 point on average slide, or it stays the same, which is precisely why we work so hard, excuse me, on getting the ballot language as high as I possibly can before we send it to the voters. I like to say when we do that, our best piece of direct mail will be when the vote by mail ballots go out, because they'll see that and they'll say, wow, this is really good stuff. And keep in mind, too, this election year, there's a misinformation out there that presidential elections, there's more political communications. No, because that only happens at that level if you have a U.S. Senate race. We're going to have a U.S. Senate race. We're going to have the entire cabinet up. We're going to have these referenda on the ballot as well. So you're going to have a lot of political noise out there, which means the better the ballot language, the harder it is if somebody were to come out in opposition to it.
The bottom line was he said he would have felt better if it was 80% or 85%. So
I feel his pain, absolutely. The highest in the state, there's 2 high ones right now. Leon County's polling at 76, and Brevard, which is, as you know, very, very, very conservative, they're polling above 72% for 3 items: a half-penny extension from the schools, a millage increase, and a half-penny to clean up the Indian River Lagoon. All polling very, very high, and those things have been passing like crazy. We've been doing all the work in Brevard as well.
I wonder if there's, of course we only have 75 words, but I wonder if there's a way that we could almost like reference that we're trying to maintain what we've already got, that without calling it a renewal.
Got 6 words.
Well, okay, you know.
Well, you can do that through your campaigning. I mean, through your marketing. Absolutely.
That this is not really entirely new, right? That, you know, that we've already got a millage in place.
And it's impossible
Scott,
to
can we
do
say
a point.
renew-ish?
Yeah, can we use hyphenated words and just extend it?
They count as 2, according to the courts.
Can we renew and go for a 0.25 on its own?
Do 2 separate initiatives? That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know legally if you can.
I don't think so. I've never seen it anyway. It's interesting.
I don't know that you can.
Separate them.
Yeah.
I don't know you can. I don't know if you can. It's a good question, though.
I don't know. It's a good question.
An interesting question.
We can find
Well,
the
that great a
answer,
question.
but
I wanted to answer.
Mr. Chairman, that was brilliant.
Except it's probably a bad idea.
Mr. Vancouver, I do have one more question. To play politics a little bit, I don't think education is a political issue, but looking at where we are currently in a midterm election, and generally who comes out in a midterm relative to where we are at the national scale at this point, I think there's going to be a turnout that's slightly more blue this go around, which I think even improves our chances with something like this, even though I would think that red-leaning folks would support this initiative as well. But do you think that skew would make any difference relative to where we are currently with politics in Florida?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gently. And it's a complicated answer because Florida, there seems to be a moat in Florida from the rest of the country. Now, what just happened this week in Texas, 21-point swing. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to, the trade winds right now, if you look at a bunch of variables, the trade winds right now are blowing pro-Democrat, pro-blue, as it were. So. That's the longer answer to your short question, which is, yeah, I do think the current climate will positively impact that. But you could also say the current climate will also include potentially an overall tax reduction. Well, what's interesting about the overall tax reduction, it holds every proposal, the only ones that are on the table right now. So the governor has said he wants to do something, but he hasn't written anything. The Senate hasn't either. And they're reticent to do so, by the way.
Yep.
All of them hold schools harmless. Now, they also claim to hold law enforcement harmless. The math doesn't work on that, so that's what they're trying to work out. But that might work to our advantage. It also might work to our disadvantage. I wish I had a crystal ball. I put it in my budget. They don't give it to me. But if I had a crystal ball, I could tell you more. And yes, I'd love to get 80%. That's my objective, is to always get these things as high as possible.
Midterms just make me scary because generally you've got less of a turnout in a 26 versus a 28. But with the push from the governor's office, if they do get a ballot initiative on from property taxes versus some reinvigoration with the left with trying to center balance some things, in their opinion, it could be just how those factors all play together. I mean, old data is important, but really doesn't matter today versus what we're doing at this point. So just trying to be mindful of
and it is our intention to come
climate.
back in the summer and poll again heading into the campaign season.
Because I agree with Mr. Mathias, I don't want to risk losing the $37.5 million and just being as sure as we can that we've got the words in here and we can do the proactive measurement.
Right? So the governor's going to be decided. So I think that's going to pull.
That'll help turn out. Yeah.
Turn out like a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And we just message
and what doesn't drive turnout are local referenda, even other amendments on the ballot. What's going to drive turnout is sentiment towards what's happening in Washington. When Tip O'Neill said all politics is local, throw that out the window. Now, today, in this environment, all politics is national.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think, thinking back to the millage and when we first decided to do this, I think that there wasn't a person on this board that wasn't a wholehearted advocate. We were ready to go. We were ready to do what it took to get that millage passed. And I think for me, fundamentally, I feel like it's time for us to do that with the inclusion of the teacher and the staff pay. And that I do think it's tricky. I'm not, I'm standing up here telling you guys that the thought, with all of the political, that made me laugh that you said it's not political, because there is a lot of feelings and a lot of fake news, for lack of a better word. I'm trying to, not communicated well, ideas that, it's only teacher unions that are asking for more pay, and that we have more options in school choice, and that Florida is the #1 system in public education, and, well, they don't say public education, school choice, right? So it is a swirly, whirly thing that's happening out there for really, really educational terms being used. But I do believe that fundamentally, we know that teachers and staff in school districts deserve more money, period. I think our marketing needs to be smart. There's no doubt in my mind that it would be. I think the message needs to be clear. I don't think we need to try to mishmash things like it's what we believe just as firmly as we believe in the other millage. I agree. It's scary when you bring the other money onto the table. It is. But I do think it's worth the risk. I think that campaigning, if we need to go door to door, that's what we did. I've done it before. It's hot. I lost some weight. It's good stuff. But I do think it's just fundamentally important. This morning on the way here, I listened to a podcast, but it was talking about being able to fight for so your children don't have to fight for it. And for us to stand up. And I've always wanted to be in a position to stand up when it's time to stand up.
Excellent. But if I take the language away for a second, just ignore the language on these. If I were to say which is the lower risk, would you rather take that one or that one? I would argue that's the higher risk because it polls lower. And when we make some of the tweaks that you recommended and Scott and we talked about, I think this number actually goes a little higher. Not much, because you're starting to hit a ceiling. I wish we can get 80. Never seen it.
But you're,
Children's Services Councils tend to get in the 80s, but also raising property taxes, right? But I think if this is, to me, the lower risk, because it polls higher within the same poll. I'm not comparing two outside polls. When you do that, statistically, they are both subject to the margin of error. So if those are different polls, you would this and this would be considered by the computer to be relatively equal, that the variation is statistical noise. It doesn't work that way when it's within the same poll, because you had actual people who said no to the first one and yes to the second one.
I think that would be, and again, our spirit has always been to control our own destiny.
Right.
But for me, with the climate, with the conversations about property taxes and property taxes, even though school districts are held harmless, they're going to read on their millage increase. I'm just telling you.
Sure,
I mean,
you're
this, that I 100% agree that our retirees, I'm not worried about them because they tend to be very pro schools, by the way, and pro public school. But then there is, I'm concerned that we're calling it teacher pay when it's not really going to, it is going to enhance their pay, but it's not going to be an incremental
Salary.
increase to what they're making. It's going to be done through stipends and negotiation, right?
Yeah.
I'm also concerned that when we're doing that, is there a chance of supplanting those dollars, because we still haven't ever talked about our service workers and all those folks that deserve consideration. I'm mainly concerned just putting this money at risk, but I promise you, I will be out there campaigning for whatever this board decides, because I won't be running, but I'll be running for this, whatever.
Maybe our tagline could be better than Ozempic.
I agree. What I think makes me feel a little bit better is learning more about the statistical significance of what you're saying here and the fact that we only have to get 50 plus 1, not 60. We were talking like a constitutional amendment. 60 would scare the heck out of me.
Me too. And it gets proposed by somebody every year in the legislature, and it hasn't passed yet.
So I think given where that is, I think this recommended language is really good. We can make a couple tweaks that I think make it even better. And if we fight like heck, like we always do, I'm willing to risk it as well. I think we can get this done, and I think it's worth it. So that my vote would be to support going for the 1 mil and get to work.
Okay. But we're not voting right now.
No, I agree. I'm just going to put that out there for the
We're just trying to reach
consensus.
some consensus.
For sure.
Mrs. Cunningham.
You know, I think that the five of us sit each year when it's time for salary negotiations, and we talk about, we want to give more money, our heart is there, I wish we could, and we all know the constraints that we have. And nothing comes without risk. And I guess I like to think of myself as a risk taker. Mr. Mathias, I respect your wisdom, and there's a lot of home truth in what you say. But sometimes you have to risk something to get something else. So I think that the consensus of how I feel is that we need to try. It's hard to sit up here every year, year after year, and say, if we had more, we'd give it. We're doing the best we can if we don't take advantage of this opportunity. So I'm all in for knocking on doors, doing whatever it is we have to do to get it passed. And I know that we can depend on a lot of help from some really good people out there. They're nodding their heads, and they're going to work hard, and I think we'll be successful. So for me, it's a positive.
Mr. Dodd.
Fighting for our teachers is never the wrong answer. Do the 1 mil, right?
Good. Dr. Luke.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on board with the 1 mil. Okay.
All right, so our next steps will be in regards to the referendum language. It does need to go on a board agenda for your approval, so we'll play around with that, send it out to you. You can make sure that it is exactly as you would like before we put it on the board agenda. And I did have one question because staff had asked the question. I haven't had a chance to ask you this yet. We know that your poll showed us that 81% of the voters were more likely to vote for it if it included the Independent Citizens Committee language. We were curious about strategically, do you form that committee on the front end as advocates, or does that hurt you if people don't like the people you've selected for the committee? What strategically is the best way to form that committee and when?
I've done this a lot. I've never been asked that question. I would suggest after, for the very reason you identified. And it's also a great talking point. Let's say you're talking to a group and they say, I support my teachers, but I'm not trusting that you guys are going to spend the money correctly. That's the first person you want to ask to serve on the Citizen Oversight Committee, to say, sir or ma'am, would you serve on this committee to make sure, because you have a lot of protections in this. You have the statute which requires you to spend it on those things. You can't use this and go out and buy more buses or anything that's a 5-year capital life. So you have that protection. Obviously, you're accountable to your voters. If you screw it up, they may not send you back. And then third, having a Citizens Oversight Committee, they can wave the red flag and say, hey, they're doing something wrong with this money. So I guess in light of that, I would say after the fact, say, yeah, we're going to appoint a Citizens Oversight Committee.
Okay.
So we'll get
Can we
that
discuss now his proposal?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind staying right there for a few more seconds. So if you'll recall, board, back in December, Ms. Owens came and did a great presentation on marketing strategies and our statewide efforts. And Dr. Luke, you hit it right on the head when you said this is an opportunity to change perception by doing some strategic marketing. And just from across the state, I could tell you that Mr. Vancore and his team are highly respected amongst the superintendent's group, as well as our chief financial officers, our finance council, and he's been very successful. So he has provided to us a proposal to hire him and his company to help Ms. Owens and the rest of us to create our marketing materials, which I think would be a very good use of our funding. So if you have any questions, this will also be on the board agenda. So I wanted, before you vote on this, I wanted you to ask Mr. Vancore any questions you have about his proposal, a little bit about the marketing campaign and all that we're going to be doing over the next couple of months.
Mr. Brandenburg?
My only question is really more for you all, Mr. Cole, Diane. How do we fund this? Can we pay for this directly, or do we need to fundraise for this expenditure of this? Can we use school district dollars to then try to increase a millage, or how is this $25,000 paid?
For his contract, and the answer is yes, we can.
Yeah, well, as long as the activities are appropriate activities that you're allowed to do, then you can use district funds.
Are you the person that determines what's appropriate and what's
I
not?
have to look at that.
Okay, cool. No, that just, I'm all good with the report. I just want to make sure I understand how we fund it.
Yeah.
So I've got no other questions.
I hope that's legal, because we've done about 18 of them.
Well, good. Well, I guess I should have looked at you instead.
What's the statute of limitations?
Mrs. Cunningham?
I don't have questions. I would just like to say I would look forward to working with you if the vote goes that way.
Likewise,
Hopefully you
thank
can
you.
help us.
Mr. Dye?
No, I think it's a smart idea.
Dr. Luke?
Similar.
I have just one question. Is it a money-back guarantee?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same thing. If we don't hit 66%. Yeah.
You have a money-back guarantee that I'll do everything I can to help pass this.
Are you going to poll again, whatever this new language is going to be?
That's outside of my pay grade, but I want to very much. Either the school
Why is it
district
outside of
can.
yours?
Well, it's $20,000 to do a poll, so I'd either ask the teachers union if they would fund it. If we develop a PC, would they fund it? The teachers union usually does, because what we try to do, looking globally, we'll probably have about 20 to 25 of these on the ballot. What they'll want to do is poll it, and you probably don't want to hear this part of it. So those that are doing really well, they don't need to put a lot of energy, effort, or money into. But those that are getting close, they'll want to put their like we had a situation in was it Flagler where they were at like 55 and fading. There was an active group opposed to it. When we redid Manatee, all the people who were opposed to it the first time come on board with it. So the teachers union didn't need to spend any more money on that. So I will strongly recommend it, and I will strongly advocate to try to find the money either through a PC or the teachers union.
Board, I would tell you it's critically important. I believe in the math. I mean, just so you know, I believe in the work that you do, the science of determining. And so we need to work together. I think that there are some other folks that need to be brought into the conversation, like the charters who benefit. And they have more freedom to how they can spend money and raise money.
Yep.
So we need to begin to develop our own strategy. But I would highly encourage that we do this additional polling once the final language, before it's on the ballot.
You're saying sooner rather than later?
Yes,
Before
sir.
we send it? Okay.
Did you say you didn't?
Yeah, I
agree with
love that. So the objective will be for us to redo the language, so you're happy with it, Scott, and then see if we can get another poll done.
How many of these do you expect on the ballot this year across the state, roughly, either renewals or increases?
Above 25.
Okay. And then we've got a list, or we can obviously get a list of what the other surrounding counties do from either a 0.75 or a full mill and what they spend it on, just as talking points as we move forward on this. So I think that's important to
I can send you
know.
our current list. Department of Revenue keeps track of who's got what.
Yeah,
But
what they go towards. and
Well, I
whether it's-
think Orange County already does it.
Oh, I think they all do it to some
Seminole
degree.
does it.
Yeah,
I mean, so-
Marion
so
does it for
having that
different things, and
information would-
yeah,
Yeah, Marion just did a 20-year half penny for the roads.
Right.
I'm sorry, full penny for roads, and a 10-year half penny for schools, plus they have the
like
millage.
transportation based or something.
They did a
didn't
transportation one. That's
Yeah.
why I-75 is always crowded
Yeah.
when you come by Marion County, because people use the interstate for
Right.
intra-county transportation. They're so far behind.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Rob.
Thank you.
Appreciate you driving down.